APWU family. This is President Mark Dimondstein, and it's good to be back with you with a new podcast, communicating with you, the member, and bringing you up to date on a lot of fast-moving and important issues. And I want to remind all of you, before we get started, that you can download the podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you choose to listen to your podcast. And of course, you can also find it on our website, APWU.org. Well, there's a lot going on, folks, and I think you all know that. We have executive orders coming out of the White House attacking federal unions. We have legislation moving through the House of Representatives to end dues checkoff for postal workers and other federal workers. We have a resignation of PMG Louis DeJoy, and we have the general onslaught directed at the public Postal Service and those who want to privatize us to laugh all the way to the bank, those Wall Streeters like Wells Fargo, and we'll talk about that some more later in the podcast. And so we really have a real struggle developing between Main Street and Wall Street when it comes to defense of the public Postal Service. And of course, we still have our own ongoing struggle for a new, decent collective bargaining agreement that covers 200,000 postal workers and therefore has a huge impact on not only the individual worker, but our families and our communities and really our country. So let me first address the question of contract negotiations and where we're at and where we hope to be in the near future. We are now 6 months past the expiration of our agreement that expired on September 20th, 24. I do want to remind everybody that while we're struggling for a new contract, all our rights and benefits, our contractual gains remain in place outside of when our next general wage increase will be and when our COLA will be. But everything else is in place, and that's a very good thing for all of us. Look, negotiations are always difficult. They're always complicated. They always have been, and they always will be. We've had some unique complications in this round of bargaining. One is we have internal changes at the post office with the change in the PMG. We had a change in presidential administrations while we're in the middle of collective bargaining. That certainly has an impact. We now have a change in the leadership of the Postal Service with PMG DeJoy resigning. We've had the situation where the NALC, our sister union, the National Association of Letter Carriers, took a very long time for whatever their reasons to reach a new agreement. First, a tentative agreement that was rejected by the members, now a mediation arbitration award that's come out. All of that had an impact on the pace of our negotiations and had an impact that we're still in the process. So here's where we are. We're still meeting. In fact, as we're recording this podcast, when I'm done, we're going to have meetings with the top management officials that are responsible for negotiations on their side. But here's the deal. Negotiations have gotten more difficult in a period where the federal unions and the postal unions are under severe assault and threat from this administration. But having said that, and understanding that we need and really need to secure a good contract that protects all the great gains of generations of struggle, and we need to get that contract signed. We're still in the process. We're going to keep you posted. Obviously, the NALC contract will have an impact on the parameters of what we're able to negotiate, but we're going to do the very best we can, and we're going to have to bring it to a head soon. It's either going to be a voluntary agreement where you will all as members have a final vote on whether it's acceptable to you, given the times and given the challenges, or whether we go to what's called an interest arbitration process, where our wages, rights, and benefits going forward will be determined by one arbitrator. Obviously, it's better if we can control our own destiny and you be the final decision makers on whether that contract meets our needs the best we can going forward. So that's where we're at. We're going to continue to keep you posted. We're going to continue to push forward, and we should have some news one way or the other, the fork in the road that we're getting close to, on whether we're going to reach an agreement or whether we're going to enter the arbitration process. Let's talk about what's going on in our society, some in broad stroke, and what's going on with the post office. As I already mentioned, we have an executive order going after federal unions. We are a federal union. That executive order does not apply to us at the moment. But let's be real. We are certainly in the target of those from the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025 who are now running the Office of Management Budget at the White House. We are clearly in their sights, and they clearly want to destroy our union rights, and underlying it all is they want to privatize, either in whole or in part, the public United States Postal Service. So let's briefly talk about privatization. What is it? Because I think it's misunderstood. There's so much propaganda about how the private sector can do it more efficiently, can do it better, so on and so forth. Privatization simply means shifting money, services from the public side, where it's based on the mission of serving the people of the country, to the private side. Sell it off, break it up, becomes corporatized. And what's their goal? Our goal as the public entity is to serve everybody through the universal service standard, serve them equally, uniform rates, no matter who we are and where we live. Privatize means that who gets mail, how often they get mail and packages, and the kind of service they get will be based on whether a company or Wall Street can make a quick buck. So the results are very clear. When things are privatized, services go down, prices go up, and workers take a beating. So we have to educate ourselves and our own members, because we have a lot of people who believe, well, they've been talking about privatization for decades now. It hasn't happened before. It's not going to happen now. Let's not go down that path. The reason it hasn't happened yet is because we have the American Postal Workers Union, the other postal unions, the labor movement, and so many strong community allies. But major parts of the post office have been largely privatized, such as mail processing. That's what the pre-sort discounts did. They enabled private companies to sort our mail outside of the post office, transport it outside of the post office, and send it to the last mile. So we shouldn't fool ourselves that privatization is a real threat, whether it's by legislation, and there's actually a bill that says, okay, the post office will no longer exist, or whether it's the kind of piecemeal privatization that's been done with the pre-sort discounts. We often talk about how this is a struggle now because we're facing a new threat of privatization that we've never faced before. We have these billionaires, the unelected President Elon Musk, rampaging through the country trying to privatize everything they can. This whole DOGE, D-O-G-E thing, it's not about government efficiency. It's about how to rip off the public sector and turn those services over to the private sector. Let me make a side comment about DOGE and its relationship to the post office. Because certainly DOGE is leading the charge, rampaging through government, undermining government services that the people of the country need, that Congress has voted on and funded for the people of the country. So who the heck are wannabe dictators to say we're just going to cancel something that Congress has funded and voted on? However, we should be very concerned about DOGE, but we're keeping a very close eye, and I want you to all notice, about DOGE's relationship to the post office. Number one, to make sure that DOGE never has access to your personal data, your financial data, all the records that the post office has, and so far we've been able to keep them away. If they reach further, we're prepared to immediately go into court for a temporary restraining order. But there is some misinformation in the media around the relationship of DOGE and, right now, postal management. They've not given DOGE carte blanche. They've signed a memo that's now public. You can read for yourselves. They've written letters to Congress, and they're basically saying to DOGE, you know, if there's some things you can help us with that we're working on, then give us some ideas. Such as, wouldn't it be a good idea, and we think it would be as the APWU, to be able to invest in safe harbor type of TSP accounts, the billions of dollars, let's say, that are in our health fund. Those billions of dollars are forced by Congress into the federal treasury. They earn almost no interest. So, for instance, if you have $40+ billion of the health fund sitting in federal treasury earning 2%, but health costs are going up 8 and 10% a year, guess who has to make up the difference? They may have been earning 7, 8, 9% instead of 1 or 2%. This is one of the ways Congress has really hurt the post office over the years, and one of the ways that they could help to fix it. Congress has forced the post office to be a cash cow for the federal treasury. And then the privatizers like to say, and look at the money you're losing, rather than saying, let's fix it and allow the post office to do some responsible investments to be able to earn billions of dollars back rather than being drained out of the postal treasury into the federal treasury. So again, we're keeping our eye on those, but every headline you read in the press is not necessarily true. And for instance, the press is talking about how there was an agreement with DOJ and the post office to shed 10,000 jobs. Just not true. We signed a memo with management on January 13th to allow retirement with an incentive. And you all know that was long before there was any discussions between postal management and DOJ. So we'll keep you posted on that front as well. And we're going to be extremely vigilant and aggressive in terms of defending your privacy and your rights as postal employees. So let me go back now to billionaire Musk and people like him trying to pick our pockets, pick the pockets of the people of the country, to take over our public postal service, privatize it, break it up, and laugh all the way to the banks. It was just a very insightful Washington Post article the other day on this very issue. They're trying to shift public services over to the private side. And of course, Elon Musk, the wealthiest person on earth, made many of his billions subcontracting with the government. So he's so anti-federal government, but that's how he made his millions. And he's anti-federal government because he just wants to make more. But understand what's happening to us. They're on a rampage to hollow out government services that the people desperately need. Just this week, while I'm recording this, Health and Human Services is in the process of laying off 20,000 employees, and that includes with the Food and Drug Administration, CDC, NIH, so that would include cancer research, for example, how to deal with threats of new pandemics, and so on. These are services the people of the country really need, and they're being ripped away from us, just as these billionaires wish to rip away the question of public postal services for the people of the country. And I want to say one other thing about how we're framing the issue of the struggle to save the public postal service. It really is a struggle between Wall Street and Main Street. Main Street, meaning the people of the country, have absolutely zero to gain from privatization. They will lose out on higher prices, they'll lose out on less service, they'll lose out on good jobs that build stronger communities. But the Wall Street crowd wants their greedy hands on the $82 billion plus that's generated, not tax dollars, generated by the users of the postal system. Now, a lot of people roll their eyes when I talk about Wall Street all the time, but you don't have to listen to me. Elon Musk was at a J.P. Morgan conference, one of the major Wall Street firms, about 2 weeks ago, and he openly said, I want to privatize everything that he can. Think about that. Everything that they can. And then Wells Fargo, one of the top 4 banks and investment firms in the country, put out a report on February 27th, laying out exactly how the private sector would benefit from postal privatization. And I would encourage all of the good listeners to look up that report and think about what it says. Because what it says is all roads lead to better parcel pricing. Now, better parcel pricing for you and me or the people of the country is affordable parcel pricing, the lowest possible parcel pricing. What they mean, Wells Fargo means by better parcel pricing, is an increase in the rates of packages. And think about what that would do to the people of the country in this world of e-commerce. So they're acknowledging that we are the low-cost anchor for the people of the country in this industry. And they estimate that if they can peel off the parcel side, now we're talking about partial privatization, that the rates would go up between 30% and 140%. So that's what they're cheering. And they're encouraging people through this equity investment piece. They're encouraging people that these are good investments because postal privatization that's now being openly talked about by this administration will cause package rates to go up if they indeed are able to privatize as they wish. So it really is Main Street versus Wall Street. But there's a whole lot more of us than them. That's what you were out doing on March 20th. Hats off to all of you who were able to participate. We understand a lot of work schedules made it impossible for some people to get out on that day. But we were informing the public that the threat is real. Call us the Paul Reveres of the modern day. Instead of warning the population that the British are coming, we're warning the population, the postal users, which is every single person in this country, that the privatizers are coming. They want to pick your pocket, and they want to steal what belongs to you, the United States Postal Service. March 20th was really a good day of action. And as many of you know, 3 days after that, the NALC had a National Day of Action on March 23rd. Many of us participated in as well. Many of the other postal unions and workers represented by the other unions also participated in our day of March 20th. We had over 300 events around the country. We had many allies join us, and we had terrific press coverage, which is one of the things we wanted. We purposely asked all of you to decentralize, so to speak, our activities. Rather than all gather in one place in one state, we wanted all of you to have as many local events as possible, talk to the postal customers, share the truth of what's going on, share that the threat is real, and give the people of the country steps that they can take to take action to save their postal service. So when we leafleted, we talked about how the public, the allies, can go onto our website, apwu.org/action. All of you can continue to do that to find out the steps that we can all work together on to save this wonderful national treasure. And that includes calling Congress. It includes signing petitions and the like. So we had about 650 TV spots from those activities. And that was all based on what you all did all over the country. And that's exactly what we wanted. So when you bring a dozen people out in front of a post office and you leaflet the customers and talk to them, that's a start. But when you get a TV spot based on that activity, you had thousands and thousands of people get educated about what's happening and why we're out there in the streets standing with the people of the country. So look at March 20th, though, as a beginning, not an end. This is not going to be an overnight battle. People like billionaire Commerce Secretary Ludnick, right out of Wall Street again, who openly advocates and talks about his interest in postal privatization. These folks are not going away. The Elon Musks are not going away. The Wells Fargo equity research team is not going away. They truly want their hands on the post office. So we're in a long struggle, and I want to also encourage you, though, in that struggle, that we just finished recently a poll, a survey of the people of the country. We hired professional outside polling firms. We had two work together, one from the conservative side, one from the liberal side. And what we found was very encouraging because the people of the country still overwhelmingly have a favorable and trusting view of the Postal Service. People readily use the Postal Service in whatever way suits them. And very interesting for all of you is when people were asked who they trust the most to understand what's happening with the Postal Service and what's best for its future, the highest polling group was you, postal workers. So that's an indication you should speak up and be heard. The public wants to hear from you. You can start with your coworkers. You can start with your family. You can start with your friends and neighbors. And think about if we talk to people every day. We have, 160,000 active members. We have another 30,000 plus retiree members. Think about if we just talked to one person every day, what impact that would have for the people of the country understanding the fight that's in front of us. So I said that March 20th, look at it as a beginning. We have some other plans already in the works. As all of you, I'm sure, know, there's big changes at the Postal Service. Louis DeJoy, PMG DeJoy, has resigned. I believe it was largely pressure from the White House, because whatever people think about the PMG or the former PMG, he did not prove to be a privatizer. He was bringing subcontracted work back in. We were trying to do some innovative things here and there. Didn't always agree on the way plans were being implemented, obviously, but we don't disagree on the need for change in light of the changing communication habits of the people of the country in this internet world. But he was not a privatizer, so he did not fit into the plans of this administration. Doug Tolino, the deputy PMG, now by law becomes the interim PMG, but the Board of Governors, the Postal Board of Governors, are the ones that have to determine who the next PMG will be. So we're going to be advocating to the Postal Board of Governors that they choose a PMG that's absolutely dedicated to the public mission of the Postal Service, to the universal service obligation, serving everybody, no matter who we are and where we live, to any efforts on the part of Wall Street and corporate America to seize and take over, break up, and sell off the public postal service. We also are going to remind the public around tax season and tax day that the post office does not receive tax dollars as part of its ongoing operations. All of this talk from those who want to privatize that the post office is losing money, and there are obviously financial challenges, but folks, it's not tax dollars. It's not tax dollars. I was asked on it was a hostile reporter, well, where'd all that money go? I said, well, the money is spent to serve the people of the country, and that's what it's for. So tax day is another great opportunity to talk to everybody you can about how the post office functions. We're not a burden to the taxpayers. We also need to make some positive, serious change and improve services and the kind of things we've been looking at for years, financial services, licensing like fishing and hunting license, and so on. So much more that the post office can do and should do. We also are looking later in the year to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States Postal Service. This July, the Postal Service turns 250, 1 year older than the country itself. And one of the reasons we want to pay special attention to this anniversary, this celebration, is because of those who are coming at us so hard, the billionaire class, the Wall Street class that's coming at us so hard to undermine and destroy the Postal Service. So let's remind the people of the country. Let's go to city council meetings. Let's get out there in the streets and celebrate what a wonderful institution the post office has been for the people of the country for the last 250 years. So these are some of the things that are coming down the pike, and along the way, we ask all of you to stand with everybody else under assault. The federal workers are under assault. The TSA workers at the airport had their contract ripped up by this administration. The teachers are facing an elimination of an education department that actually provides the needed benefits for 15 million special needs children. These are the kind of attacks that are coming down. Some of the other attacks on government agencies will deeply affect our farmers. And so there are many battles out there that we want to stand together with each other, because none of us can win these battles alone. And if we want the people of the country to be here for us, defending the Postal Service, defending good living wage union jobs, we're going to have to be there with everybody else, from the federal workers on down, who are also under attack. And as we're talking about some of the important steps that our members, family and friends, co-workers can take, it's very important that we put continuing focus on House Res 70, House of Representatives. So a House resolution is not a law, but it's a sense of the House. And basically what House Res 70 says is no to postal privatization. So that's important to get that as part of the record, and we need it on a bipartisan basis. It was submitted on a bipartisan basis. And now on the Senate side, we have a companion Senate Resolution 147, also submitted on a bipartisan basis. So we're asking all of you to get with your senators and your House reps, get them to sign on, and you can do that by calling the legislative hotline at 844-402-1001. When you get connected to your Senate office, you will stay on the line to speak to your second senator. Really important that we get that into the record of the majority of the Senate on a bipartisan basis and the majority of the House on a bipartisan basis. No to privatization. That will become another powerful tool for us to fight back against these oligarchs that want to take away our post office, with it our union contracts, our decent wages and benefits, and our rights. So all of these actions, calling your House reps and your senators, petitioning the Board of Governors and others, are on our website, apwu.org/action. And all of the action steps going forward are on there, and they will change over time. They will be updated, so it'll probably be helpful if you go back every so often to see what we can do next, see what we can do together to stand up and fight back and win. So listen, folks, I know these are difficult times and challenging times. Sometimes we don't know where to turn. Sometimes we're just upset and confused. We have every right to be angry. But let's understand that despite the challenges, we are certainly not helpless and we're not hopeless. We had the American Postal Workers Union. We got the other postal unions. We got our labor movement. We got tremendous allies around the country from the civil rights community, the veterans community. And the key here is that the people of the country really stand with us. And we have to educate the people of the country about this real threat. We have to unite with the people of the country to defend what belongs to them. And I think if we stand strong, we show courage, we show maximum unity and strength, that we're going to be able to prevail. But understand, this fight's not over with our March 20th actions. It's not going to be over in a day, a week, or a month. This is going to be a lockdown, drag-out battle for the hearts and minds of the people to defend what belongs to them and make sure the billionaires don't take over the post office. As one of our slogans was on the March 20th events, the post office belongs to the people, not to the billionaires. So we want you to be encouraged, but we want you to be firm, speak up and be heard, and make sure that we stand together with each other, no matter what crafts we're working, no matter how long we've worked for the post office, no matter who we are, active and retiree alike, and stand together with all other workers, particularly our federal workforce, that are under a similar type of attack. They want us to think we're helpless and hopeless. They want to throw this kind of shock and awe at us so that we get confused and demoralized. But we're going to stand strong. We're going to stand together. And brothers, sisters, APW family, we plan to win this fight, but we're going to have to be in it for the long haul. I hope as we continue going forward, you remain in good spirits and good health. Stand strong in solidarity with each other, in solidarity with other workers, and in solidarity forever. Take care, everybody.